So this week on the Huffington Post, I talked about how iChat can save your relationships. And when I talked about saving your relationships, I meant that in terms of when you have a really big blazing row, that sometimes it's quite good to withdraw and write it out so that the other person can actually read what you're saying rather than it escalating and you shouting over each other. The important thing to remember is that you probably have had arguments in the past. Let's say you had loads of arguments last year or the year before that, but you probably actually don't remember what most of them are about. So it's just proof to show that it proves to show that a lot of the arguments that you have are actually about very little. So to put them into perspective and have a little bit of sort of not to take them too seriously is really important. Also, don't judge the other person because of their point of view. Everybody has a different perspective, and you must respect that they have that perspective and really listen to them. Really listen to what the other person has to say, because their perspective may not be the same as yours, which obviously it isn't if you're in an argument. But in the argument, this is something that I do a lot with my husband when he's upset with me. I jump into his shoes and imagine how he feels. And actually, usually when I go into what it's called is second position, I actually usually think that he actually has a very good point. So really try to do that when you're in an argument. Just jump into their shoes and you might realize that actually you're playing up a little bit. You may not be, you may be, but at least it gives you that perspective. Also that you can't take arguments too personally as well. Just make sure that you stick to the subject. When you're talking about a subject, stick to the subject. Do not go off into other subjects, because it is really a downward spiral from there. And let the other person speak. You must not speak over each other. Somebody found your Match account which wasn't active. What I would do is explain to her, look, it wasn't active. I have been looking out to meet somebody, and obviously I was on Match.com looking for somebody, but you can see that it's not very active, and I've been with you for 3 months now, and you know, I'm looking for somebody, so the fact that I've been with you means that I haven't been looking for somebody else. I think you have to be really honest about that situation. And then the other thing is you know, 3 months isn't a very long time to be going out. And quite honestly, in the first 3 months, I think for both of you to be open to the possibility that, you know, you're testing the waters to see if each other is right for you, is a very good thing to do. So if you want to go back with this girlfriend, I would be really honest with her and actually tell her that you asked me the question and this is what I said. I've got another question, which is such a great question, which I want to answer, which is from Catherine. And Catherine says, how am I supposed to do iChat arguments? We don't have separate bedrooms. We are always together. Now this is quite funny actually, because I wrote today in the Huffington Post about how Ollie and I have separate bedrooms, and then one night we had this huge iChat argument about whether to vaccinate our baby or not. And I've had a lot of responses saying that we must have the most awful relationship because we're in separate bedrooms and we have to iChat our arguments. But I promise you, we don't iChat our arguments. It was that one argument. It was a big, you know, sort of major one. So look, most people don't have separate bedrooms. You only have separate bedrooms if you really can't sleep with the other person. This is just as an aside. If you really can't sleep together and you've tried every snoring device known to man, you have totally different sleeping patterns, then I have suggested before, and I will still suggest, that it is an amazing thing to do, because that means that you both get sleep, and sleep is the #1 thing for health. So, Catherine, I don't really understand. How am I supposed to chat arguments? I don't think you should chat chat arguments. What I was suggesting as well is that if you have, you know that when you have a huge argument, and they really are those rare situations where you are literally beside yourself with each other, to withdraw so it doesn't get out of control, it doesn't get really over emotional, it doesn't get where you're left both shaking, your knees are knocking because you've had such a huge argument. Maybe you don't have them, but what I'm suggesting is, in that case, just withdraw, take a breath, go into separate rooms and just write it down, because that means that the other person can actually read it, and by reading it they listen. Because sometimes when you have these huge arguments, you end up listening to what you think the other person has said, not what they've really said. So you take in what they've said and then you interpret it into what you think they've said, or what you think you want them to have said. But what I'm suggesting is, in those cases when you're both really off center, those extreme situations, just take a breath, write it down so that you both can actually listen to each other. Because in writing, you actually have to read. The person with the most flexibility runs the system. So if it's a relationship system, which is what this is, this dynamic, you're flexible. You've asked that question. I'm giving you the answer and saying, you build the bridge. You are the one to do that. And keep going, trying to become friends with her. I think you go out with her for coffee. I think that you say to her, I feel you disrespect me. I feel that you still do it. You still do it. You've got to still do it. And because eventually you will break through. So either go out with her, just you and her together. Go out with her, the three of you, if you want, if that would be easier. But I really do tend to think that women can come to agreements together, and you can sit down with another woman and one woman to another, and you really can have a good conversation about it and come to agreements about it. So keep going, go out with her, say that I feel a bit disrespected by you, and say how you feel to her, because I don't believe that one woman to another cannot come to an agreement. I just can't see it, unless they're on drugs or something and you just can't get through to them. But usually women can really communicate. I'm going to take this question from Matty, who says, my ex of 11 years wants to remain friends and I can't because I still have feelings. Should I? Well, look, I don't think you should initially, if you still have feelings for them. Absolutely not. Not at least not now, while you're trying to get over it. If he's still around, in some ways, if you're still attached to him, then it doesn't leave space for someone else to come through. So you really, Matty, I would actually say to him, you know what, I need some space right now, maybe in the future. But while he's around, he's filling up that relationship space that you will want to fill in with someone else at some point. You'll probably want to air out after 11 years of being with someone, which is a hell of a long time. I don't know how old you are, but it sounds like you need to sort of air out, go out with different people for a while, you know, make some changes in yourself, become whole and complete in yourself, shift your consciousness slightly so that you can meet. And by doing that, you'd have to work on yourself, do some therapy, do some coaching, shift your consciousness so that you magnetize somebody who is right for you in the future.